ZUMWALT is a ZUMWALT-class destroyer, the US military's newest class of destroyers in the 21st century. Just looking at its exterior, you can already feel a strong sense of science fiction. The ZUMWALT class is 82 meters long, 24 meters wide, and has a full load displacement of 14,500 tons. In terms of tonnage, it is currently the largest destroyer in the world. Compared to its big brother, the Arleigh Burke class, it is nearly 30 meters longer, 4 meters wider, and about 500 tons heavier. But the ZUMWALT isn't just bigger in size, it represents a fundamental leap in design. Unlike conventional destroyers, the ZUMWALT class is a stealth warship. Its exterior is extremely clean, with no cluttered antennas or irregular surfaces. On radar, the ZUMWALT appears similar to a small fishing boat just over 10 meters long, with a radar cross-section only about 2% that of an Arleigh Burke class destroyer. In addition, the ship is packed with cutting-edge technology from bow to stern, essentially filled with the most advanced systems the US military has to offer. Most notably, its two main guns are considered the core of the entire destroyer, and the US Navy placed enormous expectations on them.
After I visited DDG-1000 when she was being built, I said if Batman had a ship, it would be the USS Zumwalt. Now folks, I'm no Bruce Wayne, but like Batman's alter ego, I've been accused of having an insatiable appetite for cutting-edge technology to fight the forces of darkness in my neighborhood.
But despite sounding so perfect on paper, the ZUMWALT class had anything but a perfect career. Initially, the US Navy planned to procure around 32 ships and deploy them widely. Today, however, only 3 ZUMWALT-class destroyers were ever built. All follow-up production plans were cancelled, and even the 3 existing ships are now facing major retrofits to adapt to new combat requirements. So what kind of warship is the ZUMWALT class? And what exactly did it go through to fall from early glory to its current status within the US Navy? Welcome to Chris's military base, where we focus on military equipment from around the world. Today, we're talking about the US Navy's most controversial destroyer, the ZUMWALT class. In the 1990s, the Soviet Union collapsed and the Cold War came to an end. With its strongest rival gone, US naval dominance became virtually unshakable. At the time, the US operated 16 aircraft carriers, including 5 Nimitz-class, 1 Enterprise, 4 Kitty Hawk-class, and 4 Forrestal-class carriers. Their overall combat power was staggering. It's fair to say that on the oceans, the US Navy had no real opponent left. And if there was no enemy at sea, then the focus shifted to land. In 1991, the Gulf War broke out. To strike Saddam Hussein's Iraq, the United States launched Operation Desert Storm. This war showed the world what modern warfare would look like. Relying almost entirely on air power, US forces completely crippled Iraq. The US Navy deployed 6 carrier strike groups, nearly 500 aircraft rotating through missions, conducting various ground attack operations. Even 2 World War II veterans, the Iowa-class battleships, were brought back into service, firing more than 100 rounds of 46mm shells at Iraqi ground targets.
Oh my gosh, that was just one barrel.
The entire campaign lasted just over a month before Iraqi forces were completely defeated. Nearly 500,000 US Army troops barely saw combat. This war reinforced the Navy's belief that its strategy should shift from open ocean combat during the Cold War to projecting firepower onto land to deal with frequent regional conflicts. In 1994, the C-21 program was launched, aiming to develop a 21st-century land attack ship. 3 initial concepts were proposed: a large multi-purpose frigate, an upgraded Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, and an advanced cruiser. In the end, the Navy chose the third option, Plan B. This concept ship had a displacement of 9,400 tons, 2 5-inch main guns, and 64 vertical launch cells. It would become the predecessor of the ZUMWALT class. However, in 1995, the project was cancelled by Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Michael Borda. He instead advocated building a pure missile ship, one with no functions other than launching missiles. This ship could carry over 500 vertical launch cells and displace more than 30,000 tons. The US military called this concept the Arsenal ship. Admiral Borda was highly confident in the Arsenal ship concept, believing it was the optimal solution for land attack fire support and could bypass bureaucratic obstacles to produce a prototype before 2000. Unfortunately, Admiral Borda committed suicide in 1996. Without his support, the Arsenal ship program was cancelled. The Navy returned to the C-21 concept ship, but packed it with even more advanced technology. The new class was named after Admiral Zumwalt, the youngest chief of naval operations in US Navy history. Initially, the U.S. Navy planned to spend $46 billion to procure 3D2 Zumwalt-class destroyers. High rand and testing costs forced the procurement plan to shrink from 32 ships to 24, then to 16 by 2005. At that point, the cost per ship had already surged to $3 billion. Keep the program alive. The Navy cut it again, this time down to just 7 ships. In November 2005, the plan was finally approved for production. But only a few years later, internal doubts emerged. In July 2008, the Navy stated that the global security environment had changed. According to 15 classified reports, the Zumwalt class was highly vulnerable to missile attacks, and building Arleigh Burke-class destroyers made more sense. The Navy essentially decided it no longer wanted its own child. Then came another blow. By January 2009, the cost per Zumwalt had ballooned to $5,290.64 billion, 81% higher than initial estimates, violating the Nunn-McCurdy Amendment. This law limits cost growth in USS weapons procurement. If costs exceed the original estimate by 25%, Congress must be notified. If they exceed 50%, the Secretary of Defense must justify the program's necessity, or it gets canceled. In April 2009, the final decision was made. The total number of Zumwalt-class ships would be capped at 3. In fact, the third ship was nearly canceled as well. It was only built to keep Bath Iron Works operational and avoid a production gap. After completing the Zumwalts, the shipyard returned to building Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. Construction of the first Zumwalt began in February 2009. It was launched in October 2013 and officially commissioned in October 2016. That same year, the U.S. Naval Institute reported that the 3 Zumwalts, including R&D costs, totaled around $22.15 billion, averaging $7.5 billion per ship. To put that into perspective, 1 Zumwalt equals 7.5 Ticonderoga-class cruisers, 3.5 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, or more than 2 French Charles de Gaulle-class aircraft carriers. It even exceeds the Philippines' entire 2023 defense budget. The Zumwalt is truly a money-burning beast, so why is it so expensive? The answer lies in its advanced technology. Its primary mission was land attack fire support, and the entire ship was designed around 2 55mm guns known as the Advanced Gun System. These guns use a unique munition called the AWAY-LAP long-range land attack projectile. Each shell has its own propulsion system and GPS guidance, with a maximum range of 18.5 kilometers and accuracy within about 50 meters. When not in use, the gun barrels retract into the turret to minimize radar reflections. The Navy claimed these 2 guns could do the work of 6 conventional guns. With an automated loading system, they could fire 6 precision rounds in just 2 seconds. On paper, it sounded impressive if it worked, but the problem was cost. Originally, with 32 ships, each RLAP round was expected to cost around $35,000. With only 3 ships, however, the price skyrocketed to nearly $1 million per round. For comparison, a Tomahawk cruise missile also costs about $1 million, but its range is 15 times greater and its payload 30 times larger. After purchasing 650 rounds in 2015, the program was canceled due to cost concerns. Only about 90 rounds remain today. Worse still, the 15.5mm guns were designed exclusively for RLAP and are incompatible with any other ammunition. As a result, all 3 Zumwalt-class destroyers are effectively out of ammo. The Navy has since begun removing the advanced gun systems and replacing them with hypersonic missiles. Aside from the guns, the Zumwalt features 80 Mk-57 vertical launch cells along both sides of the hull, capable of launching various land attack missiles. It can also carry 3 Mi-8B unmanned helicopters or 2 Mi-60 Seahawks armed with Hellfire missiles or torpedoes. Next, let's talk about the Zumwalt's stealth design. To reduce radar signature, it uses a tumble-home hull and composite deckhouse. Most equipment is housed inside the superstructure, which has only 6 flat surfaces. Achieving stealth on a ship of this size is an incredible engineering feat. The Zumwalt is reportedly 50 times harder to detect on radar than a conventional destroyer. But stealth technology is extremely expensive, and applying it on this scale costs a fortune. Moreover, stealth isn't even essential for the Zumwalt's mission. Land attack support requires operating close to shore, close enough to be tracked regardless. Once the ship starts firing, any stealth advantage disappears immediately. And since the U.S. Navy typically operates in fleets where most ships are non-stealthy, the Zumwalt's stealth becomes largely redundant. According to the U.S. Naval Institute, the ship's radar cross-section was originally even smaller, but cost constraints forced compromises that increased detectability. A significant portion of the cost was spent on stealth alone. Now let's talk about the Zumwalt's unique hull design. Traditional warships are wider at the top and narrower at the bottom. The Zumwalt is the opposite, narrow at the top and wide at the bottom. Its bow extends farther underwater than the main deck, a design known as a wave-piercing hull. Above the waterline, the hull slopes inward, significantly reducing radar reflections. At sea, the ship cuts through waves like a blade, offering superior stability, especially in rough weather. According to the ZUMWALT project manager, this is the only hull design that minimizes both wake and radar signature. Its overall acoustic performance is comparable to that of Los Angeles-class submarines. Thanks to extensive automation, the ZUMWALT's minimum crew is just 130 people. By comparison, an Arleigh Burke-Flight Niawai destroyer carries about 380. The goal was to reduce operating costs and build more ships, but the savings in manpower couldn't offset the massive Ryan costs of automation. Fewer crew members also reduced survivability after battle damage. With so few sailors, damage control becomes extremely difficult. That said, there are perks. Living space is far more generous. 4 sailors share a cabin with bunk beds, similar to a sleeper train. Compared to the cramped coffin racks on older ships, it's a major upgrade. The bathrooms are decent and include showers, certainly better than the frequently clogged toilets on Ford-class carriers. There's also a fully equipped medical bay capable of surgery, a standard gym, and even a barbershop. Food, however, is nothing special standard Navy fare. Ultimately, the ZUMWALT class failed because it tried to stack too many new technologies at once. Beyond what we've discussed, it also introduced an integrated electric propulsion system, advanced underwater warfare systems, a common computing environment, automated pipe rupture isolation, and over a dozen other innovations. It may be the most technologically ambitious warship of the 21st century, but more isn't always better. Most of these technologies were unproven, driving costs out of control. In the end, budget reality killed the program. To this day, the ZUMWALT still lacks a clearly defined role in the US Navy. Whether it can make a comeback will depend on the results of its hypersonic missile upgrades. That said, the ZUMWALT isn't completely useless. In many critical areas, it served as a test bed, and in the long run, it will certainly help future naval development. Alright, that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Next time, we'll return to World War II and talk about some legendary battles.